Ken versus Ryu, Chun-Li, and Guile versus M. Bison. These rivalries define Street Fighter, but beyond these legendary battles lies a conflict even older and far more personal. A battle between two brothers, torn apart by philosophy, ambition, and a power so dangerous it threatens to consume anyone who dares to embrace it. This is the story of Gouken and Akuma. One chose the path of light, seeking to purify a deadly art and pass it on to the next generation. The other surrendered himself entirely to darkness, believing that only through murderous intent could a warrior reach their true potential. Today, we're going to explore the rich lore behind these two brothers, the martial art they both practice, and the dark forces that divides them. Before we can understand the conflict between Gouken and Akuma, we need to understand what they're fighting about. At the heart of their dispute is a martial art called Ansatsuken, and a power known as the Satsui no Hado. Ansatsuken, which literally translates to Assassination Fist, is exactly what it sounds like. A martial art developed with the explicit intention of killing opponents. The term is said to have originated from Fist of the North Star back in 1983, where it was used to describe Kenshiro's deadly fighting style. Street Fighter adopted the term, first applying it to Gen in the original game, before eventually using it to describe the martial art practiced by Ryu, Ken, Gouken, and Akuma. The three signature techniques that define this art are the Hadoken, the Shoryuken, and the Tatsumaki, moves that every Street Fighter fan knows intimately. These techniques were originally developed with killing potential in mind, which is crucial to understanding the conflict we're about to explore. Interestingly, Capcom USA originally referred to Ryu's fighting style as Shotokan. Despite it bearing little resemblance to the real-life discipline, fans still call characters like Ryu, Ken, and Akuma Shotos, or Shoto clones, to this day. Intertwined with Ansatsuken is the Satsui no Hado, which directly translates to Murderous Intent Wave, but is more often called the Dark Hado, or the Killing Intent. This is a dark, energy-based force that first appeared alongside Akuma in Super Street Fighter II Turbo, a corrupting influence that promises incredible power at terrible cost. The Satsui no Hado takes the spirit of wanting to defeat your opponent and pushes it to its absolute extreme, transforming that killing intent into physical power. Those who successfully harness the Satsui no Hado gain tremendous power, but the cost is steep. They lose their humanity and compassion, developing a cold, nihilistic outlook on life and an obsessive, murderous desire to fight. Physical changes accompany this transformation: glowing red eyes, sharpened teeth, and hair that turns a fiery red. If someone embraces it fully and for too long, they cannot be released from its grip, and will transform into something no longer human, like the demonic entity known as Oni. That being said, not everyone who touches the Satsui no Hado is consumed by it. Goutetsu, the master who trained both Gouken and Akuma, was able to balance the Satsui no Hado with its opposite force, the power of nothingness. He used the dark power sparingly and wisely, never losing his humanity. This balance is what both brothers were taught, but they each chose radically different paths. The power of nothingness, or Muno Ken, represents the complete opposite of the Satsui no Hado. Where the dark force is fueled by murderous intent, the power of nothingness comes from emptying oneself of all emotion, achieving a state of perfect calm. Gouken would eventually master this power, while Akuma would reject it entirely in favor of the killing intent. Understanding this duality is essential to understanding everything that follows. Two forces, and the two brothers who would each choose a different side, setting them on a collision course that would span decades of Street Fighter lore. The story begins with two young brothers training under a master named Goutetsu, the founder of Ansatsuken, and the man who originally perfected the Hadoken and Shoryuken. Goutetsu was a unique figure in this martial tradition, maintaining perfect balance between light and dark. He taught his students everything, including the notorious Shungoku Satsu, the instant prison murder, a technique so powerful it puts even its user in considerable danger. Goutetsu's teaching philosophy seemed to embrace both aspects of the art. This balance allowed him to keep his human appearance and avoid the corruption that would later consume Akuma. But as the brothers progressed, a fundamental dispute arose about the true nature of their fighting style and how to master it. Gouken, the elder brother, couldn't accept the violent nature and dark influence of the Satsui no Hado. He saw it as inherently evil. Akuma, the younger brother, took the opposite path. He believed the martial art should be used exactly as it was originally intended, as a killing art. Unlike Goutetsu, who had carefully used the Satsui no Hado without giving in to its dark side, Akuma developed an insatiable lust to fight to the death. He left his master's guidance to train on his own, seeking to push past his limits and gain more power. When Akuma returned from his solitary training, he challenged Goutetsu to a mortal duel. Despite the intensity of their fight, there was no animosity between master and student, much like the succession battle between Guy and Zeku in the Bushin Ryu tradition. Unlike that battle, however, the ending was much more fatal. Akuma emerged victorious, fatally defeating his master with the Shungoku Satsu. Akuma claimed his master's prayer beads as a token of his victory, wearing them around his neck as a symbol of his achievement. He now seeks enlightenment as a tribute to his former master. When Gouken came to visit his former master, he found only a lifeless body and his brother, now transformed into something no longer fully human. Gouken berated Akuma for what he had done, but Akuma said nothing and disappeared into the woods alone. Gouken established a dojo and took on students, including an abandoned orphan child he had found, Ryu. Later, he would take on a second student, Ken Masters, sent by Ken's father, a good friend of Gouken's, to learn humility and discipline. There was also Dan Hibiki, whom Gouken accepted as a pupil before Ryu and Ken. However, when Gouken learned that Dan's motivation was revenge against Sagat for killing his father, he expelled him from the dojo, fearing that Dan's anger would lead him down the same dark path Akuma had taken. Years passed, then Akuma reappeared at Gouken's dojo, challenging his brother to a fight. Akuma taunted Gouken, telling him he wasn't strong enough to face him without giving in to the killing intent. Gouken retorted that their art was about more than death and destruction, accusing Akuma of dishonoring Goutetsu's name. Akuma dismissed this, claiming Goutetsu hadn't truly understood the art. In this first battle between brothers, Gouken emerged victorious. Akuma demanded that Gouken kill him, but Gouken refused to murder his own kin. Akuma called him weak for sparing a strong opponent, and vowed to return for revenge. Sometime later, Akuma would return and seemingly kill Gouken with the Shungoku Satsu in front of the young Ryu and Ken. Believing their master dead, they buried him and set out on their own journeys. The Street Fighter Alpha series, set between Street Fighter 1 and 2, marks Akuma's emergence as a legendary figure in the fighting world. He began searching the globe for worthy opponents, lurking in the shadows, watching tournaments and street fights, and desperately seeking someone who might match his strength. One of his most significant encounters was with Gen, an elderly assassin who fought using his own forms of Ansatsuken, and I have a video about their encounters that you may want to check out here. Suffice to say, the encounter with Gen highlighted something crucial about Akuma's character: his moral code. Despite being consumed by the Satsui no Hado, Akuma fights with a twisted sense of honor. He won't kill helpless or unworthy opponents. He backed out of his duel with Gen upon learning of the old man's illness, because it wouldn't be a fair fight. At this time, Akuma also became obsessed with Ryu. He found the young warrior and challenged him on his remote island training ground, Onigami Isle. The battle ended with Ryu gaining the upper hand, but in truth, Akuma was only testing him, and wasn't fighting at full strength. Akuma told Ryu to find him once he had embraced the Satsui no Hado, then destroyed the island with a single devastating blow, and vanished, leaving Ryu floating in the ocean to contemplate his words. Akuma had sensed something in Ryu, the potential to awaken the Satsui no Hado. Ryu had already unknowingly tapped into this dark power once before, during the first World Fighting Tournament, when he defeated Sagat, with a Shoryuken so powerful it left a massive scar on the Muay Thai champion's chest. During Alpha 3, Akuma crossed paths with Guy, who tried to prevent him from reaching M. Bison. Akuma would confront Bison directly, whereupon the evil dictator boasted that Akuma couldn't defeat him, as long as the Psycho Drive existed. But Akuma simply berated him for not relying solely on his fists. Their battle ended with Akuma destroying Bison with the Shun Goku Satsu. This moment crystallizes another aspect of Akuma's philosophy. He despises those who rely on shortcuts to power. Bison's use of technology and psycho power represents everything Akuma holds in contempt. Despite having no personal grudge against Bison, Akuma views him as an abhorrent type of evil, far worse than himself. And speaking of Bison, Akuma first appeared as a playable character in Super Street Fighter II Turbo, where he served as a hidden final boss. His debut was dramatic. He would appear before the final match against Bison, destroying the dictator with a single Shun Goku Satsu, and challenge the player himself. It's worth noting that Akuma's creation was indirectly inspired by an April Fool's joke from Electronic Gaming Monthly. The magazine published a fake trick claiming players could fight Shenlong, Ryu and Ken's supposed master, based on a mistranslation of Ryu's win quote. This hoax eventually influenced Gouken's appearances, and led to Akuma's creation as a similar mysterious figure. Gouken's character actually originated in the 1993 manga Street Fighter II Ryu by Masaomi Kanzaki, appearing in various media before finally becoming playable in Street Fighter IV. The developers created him in response to fans who had demanded Shenlong for years. One of his unlockable titles even states, aka Shenlong. Believed to have been killed by his brother Akuma, Gouken had in fact used a technique similar to Gen's method of surviving the Shun Goku Satsu. He had emptied his soul of all emotions at the moment of death, utilizing the power of nothingness to save his life. He wasn't dead, he was in a deep coma that would last for years. After 2 years in this death-like coma, Gouken awakened and literally rose from his grave. He left his dojo and began following his students from the shadows, pleased to see how far Ryu and Ken had come. But watching wasn't enough. He entered the SIN tournament to test their strength himself. After Seth's defeat, Gouken found Ryu and accomplished something remarkable. He contained the Satsui no Hado within him using the power of nothingness, saving him from completely losing control. Akuma appeared immediately afterwards, furious at what Gouken had done. By containing the Satsui no Hado, Gouken had seemingly robbed Akuma of his long-awaited worthy opponent. The two brothers faced off in another rematch, with Ryu's fate as the prize. Both Gouken and Akuma would survive their fight, and Ryu did not succumb to the killing intent, suggesting Gouken came out on top this time round. Later, when Ryu and Ken asked Gouken to stay with them, he declined, telling them they were grown men who no longer needed a master. This moment perfectly captures Gouken's personality. The archetypal wise elder, stern yet compassionate, knowing when to let his students walk their own paths. Akuma received a dramatic redesign for Street Fighter V, with his hair styled like a lion's mane. Here he faced Gen one final time, where Gen criticizes him for discarding his humanity. Akuma seemingly kills Gen for good, after which he witnessed a frustrating vision of Ryu rejecting the Satsui no Hado. The ancient entity Nakali then tracked him down, challenging Akuma for his soul. Nakali attempted to devour Akuma, but Akuma used the Mudo Tensho technique to escape from within Nakali's stomach. He then sought out Ryu for a climactic battle, Satsui no Hado versus Mu no Ken, Killing Intent versus the power of nothingness. It was during the events of Street Fighter V's main story that Ryu had achieved, with help from Gouken, Dalsim and Ken, the remarkable feat of converting the Satsui no Hado within him into the power of nothingness. This happened during Nakali's attempt to devour him. The Satsui no Hado that had been sealed within Ryu would later manifest as a separate physical entity called Kage, a being that resembled evil Ryu and sought to prove that Ryu was nothing without his dark power. Kage would go on to confront both Sagat and Akuma. When facing Akuma, however, Kage mockingly claimed that he kept part of himself at bay because he believed in the laws of heaven. A nearly beaten Akuma mocked Kage right back, dismissing him as nothing more than a soulless silhouette. Using a Hoten Seikengeki, Akuma made Kage disappear, and left him wondering if this shadow demon represented the path Ryu had truly chosen. Akuma would go on to defeat Ryu, but chose not to kill him. Instead, he questioned whether anyone could truly match him. Ryu, lying on the ground but still smiling, told Akuma that his fists would continue to communicate with him. Akuma departed, leaving it to fate to determine their next encounter. As mentioned earlier, Gouken also appears briefly in the game, helping Ryu control the darkness within. When Rashid appeared, seeking to test Ryu's mettle, it was Gouken who gave Ryu quiet advice before the fight, and sent him out into the world to seek out Ken, who had been worrying about his old training partner. By Street Fighter III, Akuma had been training relentlessly, harnessing incredible powers, and learning several new techniques. One strong enough to split Ayer's rock in half. Akuma's hair is slightly greyed in these games, hinting that despite his seeming inhumanity, he still physically ages. This subtle detail reminds us that beneath the demon lies a man who has given everything in pursuit of strength. In Second Impact, Akuma did not take part in the Third World Warrior tournament, but stayed hidden in the shadows. He would be challenged by Sean, who mistook him for Ryu, but easily defeated the younger fighter. He also tracked down Gil, the tournament sponsor, and successfully killed him with the Shun Goku Satsu, though he left without realizing Gil could resurrect himself from death. In Third Strike, Akuma engaged Oro, the Hermit Master. Both warriors sensed each other's massive chi and tested their powers. Their fight ended in a draw, each sensing that if they fought seriously, it would result in their mutual destruction. Street Fighter VI presents us with the most mature depiction of Akuma yet. His design combines his standard appearance with his Street Fighter V look. His hair retains the long lion mane, but with the top knot removed to its original position. Most notably, his hair is now entirely white, showing the passage of time. Though not a playable character, Gouken appears as well, through Ryu's recollections in World Tour mode. Ryu mentions that Gouken gave him a matching set of prayer beads, though Ryu doesn't wear them because they affect his mobility. Akuma himself can be found at Enma's Hollow, a location befitting his demonic persona. He's shown meditating by carving wooden idols, with the narrator describing how his very being was shaped by each battle, not unlike how each stroke of the chisel gradually carves wood into an idol. His arcade mode features a fascinating encounter with Ryu. When Ryu visits him, Akuma asks if he is reveling in their battle. Ryu responds with a silent smile, which enrages Akuma. He perceives Ryu's calm demeanor as a mockery of his desire for a fight to the death, but Ryu counters that he is putting every ounce of his being into their fight, and senses that Akuma enjoys it too, suggesting that the two warriors have something in common despite their opposite paths. Akuma challenges Ryu to another fight, but the story's ending reveals something somewhat touching. The wooden idol Akuma has been carving has a smile on its face, suggesting Ryu's words about Akuma secretly enjoying their battles might have rung true. Even the demon harbors a fighter's joy. This evolution in their relationship bears resemblance to the manga Street Fighter III Ryu Final, where Akuma develops a more respectful outlook on Ryu following his rejection of the Satsui no Hado. And though Akuma embodies the killing intent, he has also shown a softer side, having an unlikely friendship with Elena. Her bright spirit clashes with Akuma's darkness, yet he does not seem to mind her being around him, even acting as a mentor of sorts. He views her healing powers and the Satsui no Hado, a power he sees as not inherently evil, as being on opposite sides of the same coin. A concept Oro has discussed in detail with the Yogi Dalsim. Interestingly, and feeding into this idea, Street Fighter VI introduced Lily, whose spirit is suspected by Dalsim to be the dormant state of the Satsui no Hado. As of now, Lily remains unaffected by its negative power, presumably because she's unaware of its true nature. Her relationship with the killing intent remains unexplored, hinting at potential future storylines. Looking back at the paths Gouken and Akuma have walked, we can see how their fundamental philosophical disagreement shaped not just their own destinies, but the entire Street Fighter universe. Gouken chose purification. He looked at the deadly art he had been taught, and decided to remove its killing potential, transforming techniques meant for murder into tools for self-defense. He became a teacher, passing on a cleaner version of Ansatsuken to Ryu and Ken. His approach was one of restraint, spirituality, and growth. Akuma chose immersion. He believed the art should be practiced, as intended, as a killing art. Rather than restraining the Satsui no Hado, he embraced it fully, sacrificing his humanity for power. The heaven kanji that burns onto his back after the raging demon represents his transcendence beyond normal human limits, even if that transcendence came at a terrible cost. Yet both brothers retained certain values from their training under Goutetsu. Gouken's stern but caring approach to teaching reflects his master's wisdom. Akuma's moral code, his refusal to kill unworthy opponents, echoes Goutetsu's balanced approach, even if Akuma took everything else to its extreme. Their influence on Ryu represents the central conflict of the entire franchise. Ryu stands at the crossroads between his two teachers, Gouken, who raised him and taught him discipline, and Akuma, who represents what he could become if he surrendered to the darkness. Every time Ryu resists the Satsui no Hado, he honors Gouken's teachings. Every time the dark power threatens to consume him, Akuma's shadow looms. By Street Fighter VI, both brothers seem to have reached a kind of equilibrium. Gouken has made peace with his role, having saved Ryu from the Satsui no Hado, and acknowledged that his former students are now grown men who must walk their own paths. Akuma, while still seeking the ultimate battle, shows hints of something beyond pure killing intent in his interactions with Ryu. That smiling wooden idol suggests that even the demon has found something approaching contentment in his warrior's journey. What makes their rivalry so compelling is that neither brother is entirely wrong. Gouken was right that the Satsui no Hado corrupts those who embrace it fully, but Akuma's raw power, his ability to destroy islands and defeat gods, proves that the dark path does lead to incredible strength. The question the series poses isn't which brother chose correctly, but whether power is worth the cost of one's humanity. Ryu's answer, finding the power of nothingness while accepting the killing intent that lies within him, suggests a third path, one that honors both brothers' teachings while transcending their conflict. Perhaps that's the true legacy of Goutetsu, who mastered both forces in balance. His greatest students couldn't achieve that equilibrium, but their greatest student might. From their training under Goutetsu to their influence on the next generation of fighters, these two brothers have shaped the Street Fighter universe in ways that continue to resonate through every game in the series. Their story is ultimately about choice. What do we do with the power we're given? Do we embrace our darkest impulses in pursuit of strength, like Akuma? Do we try to purify and control our abilities, like Gouken? Or do we find our own path, like Ryu, taking the lessons from both extremes and forging something new? Whether you prefer the serene wisdom of Gouken or the relentless power of Akuma, there's no denying that their conflict gives Street Fighter much of its philosophical depth. They represent the eternal struggle between light and darkness that exists in every martial artist, every competitor, and perhaps every one of us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Street Fighter lore, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fighting game lore. There's more character breakdowns, explorations, and comparisons coming your way. And if you want to support the channel directly for early and exclusive content, consider joining my Patreon. Every bit of support helps me continue making videos just like this. Until next time, keep on being excellent to yourselves and one another, and I'll see you soon.